Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? Hello, my name is Kristie Grzywinski. I'm a technical director here at SQFI. Welcome to today's SQF 365 webinar, The Principles of Sanitation. We're so happy to have you here. This webinar is being recorded and available on the SQFI.com website shortly after we conclude today. Before we begin, please take a moment to review the antitrust statement that has been provided to you here on the screen. Conversations regarding price fixing, boycotting, trade restrictions, or other violations of antitrust law are to be avoided. If you believe that the conversation is in violation of antitrust law, please speak up and we will do the same. Our agenda for today, we will have three wonderful speakers. Go ahead to the next slide and I'll introduce them. First up, we have Kathleen Wyburn. She, with the DNV, she has vast experience in food safety. I've worked with her for many years. She has worked in various managerial positions in food manufacturing as the Director of Grocery Manufacturer Association Safe Audit Program, Director of DNV Supply Chain and Product Assurance, and currently as Director of Food and Beverage USA and Canada. Kathleen has established a reputation for her exceptional food safety acumen and helping her customers understand risk and digital tools available to assist them with building sustainable business practices. Kathy is going to be talking about sanitation and AI. Very interesting today. Next, we have Angela Anandapa, Chief Executive Officer and President, who leads the Alliance for Advanced Sanitation, which is an organization that helps companies solve sanitation programs and serves to troubleshoot sanitation issues. Last but not least, we have myself. Again, hello, my name is Kristie Grzywinski, Technical Director with SQFI. I'll be moderating this session today. And before I hand it over to our first speaker, let me go into, if you can share the next slide. While this webinar will be about the site's sanitation program and best practices, it's important to remember that creating a robust sanitation program in any food production site involves multiple supporting measures, multiple supporting programs, key programs such as food safety culture, hygienic equipment design, good manufacturing practices, training, verification, validation, as well as the purchase of appropriate equipment and change management. And those programs ensure the sanitation program itself is effective and comprehensive. So we have those programs that feed into the sanitation program, and the sanitation program supports other crucial areas such as environmental monitoring, allergen management, and pest management. If we can go to the next slide. You may be wondering a bit about the changes to the SQF code regarding the cleaning and sanitation. And you'll be happy to know that the reviewers of those elements of the SQF code realized that the sanitation program was good. It was good enough as it is, no major changes. But what they did is combine all sanitation into all sanitation, such as cleanness, don't forget to clean and sanitize this. I'm trying to come up with a quick reference, but they have been combined all into 1125, into that portion of the code. So you're going to see anything that references, don't forget to clean this, make sure this is properly cleaned and sanitized, will all be found within, say, the manufacturing code within 1125. So Edition 10 continues to reinforce the importance of sanitation as a foundational program of food safety. and requires clear expectations around roles, responsibilities, and verification activities of that sanitation program. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our first speaker, Angela. Please take it away.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kristie. So we're going to be talking about the sanitation programs and how we excel at managing a sanitation program and everything that goes into that. Hopefully we can cover some of the key elements in this 1-hour presentation. And then we'll have some questions from you. So a sanitation program is the key foundation in food safety. And if at any company we don't see as a key foundation, that's one of the things that we want to look to make sure that they understand sanitation and they understand what that means to the food safety program. In a HACCP-based system, we want to think of sanitation as a prerequisite program. In a regulatory system for the United States, we look at it as an additional program that we need to have verification and validation around. In addition, we are interested in making sure that the sanitation program as a whole integrates really well with the documentation that supports a risk-based food safety program. So ensuring that every stage of food production, from the grower to the retailer, and even in restaurants, we want to make sure that a sanitation program is relevant and it's well executed. And that includes cleanliness and hygiene. It includes the entire facility, includes receiving, shipping, warehousing, all of these different elements that are part of the manufacturing environment. They all need to be considered in the sanitation program. So good manufacturing practices that are stated very well and a core of the SQF standard are integral to your sanitation program. The zones that we want to have inside the facility as well as outside, so zone 1, 2, 3, 4, all of them need to be managed in a certain way. And that requires that the sanitation program includes your environmental monitoring program, as well as the cleaning of the equipment necessary, and that the data from each of these programs advises you on what steps to take to move forward with your sanitation program. So beyond the facility itself, sanitation must extend throughout the entire supply chain that is managed by that manufacturer of equipment. At its core, food safety relies on that robust sanitation program and the protocols that you build. So your SOP, the sanitation operating procedures that are necessary for running that sanitation program, will then dictate how well that program runs. It is a proactive and systematic approach. So we have to be thoughtful in how we plan our sanitation program and how we manage those risks. So let's go to the next slide. Wonderful. Okay, so here are the key elements that are part of a sanitation program that we need to consider. Each one of them can be considered and discussed for a long time, far longer than our 1-hour presentation, right? So GMPs, again, the good manufacturing practices that we need to integrate into our sanitation program include things like pest management, things like those preventive programs for managing the facility that's on the land, and how that facility has been designed. Then an integral part of the sanitation program that many are very interested in is the chemicals used and how you use it in all the different facility locations and on food contact equipment and also adjacent equipment. So the 7 steps of sanitation include, the steps that help us understand how to remove the particles. It helps us remove everything that needs to be removed from the food contact equipment, and do so in a systematic way. In those 7 steps of sanitation, there is the element of using chemistry, and chemistry that is relevant to the soil. So if the soil that you're having is from a caked on ingredient, or if it's from a chocolate, or if it's from a powdered ingredient, the type of chemistry needed to eliminate that residue might be different. The kind of protocol might be different. So the 7 steps of sanitation includes the procedures necessary, and it also has to define the specific and appropriate chemical and the temperature and time used for applying that chemical and for using water if you're going to rinse, or if it's a dry processing facility when you do not want to have water integrated into that procedure. We also need those procedures that you're writing, those SOPs for that sanitation program, to be well written. They have to be very relevant to that specific site, that specific facility's risks and the risks matrix. And in addition to that, to be able to be executed consistently every single time. So when an auditor comes in to look at that, they need to be consistently executed, and no matter who's executing the procedure. We also need to understand why we're cleaning, when we're cleaning, and why we're cleaning, so that we target the cleaning procedure based on the risk we're trying to reduce. And then we take a holistic approach to addressing that sanitation program and implementing that sanitation program so that we can reduce the risks that are associated with the product or with the manufacturing process that we are executing. And then finally, the hygienic design of the equipment used in the facility and the facility's hygienic design itself play a very key role in whether or not risks are allowed to be in the facility for too long, how it's introduced into the facility. There may be facility design issues that may actually outweigh some of the other protocols that you might have in place. So you have to think about all of this as a system that has to work together. Each one of these plays a role, and each one of them require you to conduct an assessment, do a risk assessment that is specific to that product being produced, and then in addition, know what measures are going to take to mitigate those risks. Next slide, please. All right, and then if you're executing those sanitation protocols, the cleaning procedures themselves and the reliability of that procedure is so important. So we need to also see, are we executing the procedures in the way we designed them? Essentially, we're looking to make sure that they are validated and to make sure that they can run every day and they're reliable. So validating that sanitation program is so important for us to know that it works as intended. And then verification of those programs that have to be that have to run and that have to be validated needs to be done on a frequency that we can rely on. So the types of equipment that we used to verify, the type of equipment we used to monitor them, they all are relevant and they're all specific to each procedure and to each soil that is part of that manufacturing facility. Thinking about how we can improve on those. The types of ways in which we can improve a sanitation program include first beginning with risks and understanding what those risks are, and also looking at what data we currently have. Based on the data we currently have, we can be predictive in what things we would like to have as a goal. So let's say we want to have a cleaning measure that helps us achieve more productivity in the plant. We need to define what those things are so that we can then define a validation protocol to help us support the actions that we're taking. And there are multiple ways in which we can use various types of technologies to help us achieve that. Next slide, please. Okay, so verification of sanitation. There are various ways in which we can verify sanitation and verify sanitation procedures, especially if we have things like allergens present in the facility. And so these are some of the measures you can use, or some of the technologies that can be used. Mass spectroscopy is used to understand allergenic proteins. No one in a facility has a mass spectrometer. However, if you want to understand, or you shouldn't, you want to understand the kind of parameters necessary for you to clean, there are ways in which you can understand these soils, and you can have someone do that testing for you. There's also new biosensors on the market in which you can use them to detect allergens that are left after cleaning procedures have been put in place. So trace levels of these allergens are things that we want to know, and we want to quantify them so that we can identify the risk of that allergen presence being there and then address that. There's also PCR technologies that have been used and are available now on a much broader level, in which more people in facilities have access to these technologies to understand if there are DNA traces for specific allergenic ingredients that may have made their way. So you don't do this thing on these kinds of techniques on a day-to-day basis, but you do conduct them in order to understand that risk, and then from time to time use that in your validation procedures. We can also use all the data that you gain from your sanitation procedures and from your sanitation schedule. So you develop a master sanitation schedule in which you will then be able to use that data and then use some predictive ways in which you can implement some improvements in your sanitation procedures. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, all of these elements of food safety are part of that sanitation program that's also critical for running the food safety program. So food safety culture in the corporation may be helpful for the highest levels of the corporation or the company or the factory, whatever level the company is and how big the company is. That food safety culture that the highest levels of the company really lead for the organization need to be present at every level of the company. So if you're talking about the niche that we are looking for listeria in, we need food safety culture to be helpful in identifying that and looking for the risks. So having a culture that supports looking for and proactively identifying risks so that we can address them is so crucial. So having those bigger goals for the company align well with every team that's in the company, from research and development, if you're testing or looking at flavors in the company, or if you are managing the sanitation program or the quality program. Sometimes quality programs have to work well with manufacturing programs, and then you do have the sanitation that happens at night. But all of these things have to work well with each other, and they have to share information so that there's cohesion in the company, and then the entire business is executing a food safety practice and food safety culture that delivers a safe product for the consumer. Let's go to the next slide. I think it's Kathy coming on right now. All right.
Thank you, Angela. Just wanted to do a sound check, make sure everybody can hear me okay. I think so. So one of the things that I'm asked a lot, and it's a snapshot of D&V's non-conformances, and that's what are, thank you, the top non-conformities that we see. And again, to remember that this is our snapshot, and I know it does not directly correlate with SQF's NC, where sanitation is the top NC. So cleaning and sanitizing programs is very important. And even from the D&V snapshot, and again, auditing, we don't audit every single SQF's site, but it does make the top 10. So cleaning and sanitizing, from my experience, both in the industry and being involved in many, many audits within D&V sanitation, is so important. So the emphasis on this should be put into everybody's organization, their culture, and the person's role that is in sanitation should be on par with the team, the food safety team. And I know Angela hit on this a little bit, but making sure that they are part of this. Their role is so important, and their stature within the organization should be made to that same importance. Next, please. So then I'm going to go on and talk a little bit about AI. And this is a topic, and I think you've seen to the FDA is implementing some AI into their processes. And this is kind of near and dear to change and change management and the evolution we're in right now. It's not tomorrow. It's not in a week, a month, a year. AI is here. Information technology is here, and we can all see in the media the risks that are facing us in the food industry, both in protecting your own assets and ensuring that there aren't ill-fated persons out there trying to do something intentionally or unintentionally, but it does happen. There are standards that can help with this. And it does relate directly to your SQF program with information risk, technology, and what I'm going to talk a little bit more about specifically in the next couple minutes is around AI and artificial intelligence and the risks specifically to sanitation and some of the rewards though. There are immense rewards out there if implemented correctly into your programs. And that's where I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about and the risk and the rewards. Next, please. If we look at the benefits of AI, it's immense. I mean, I use personally AI in my role, and I know within our organization, D&V, a lot of the technical folks do that, looking up information. But specific to sanitation, you can build a better master sanitation schedule using your company data. It can be all the integration of it just really can happen real time. The same thing with your environmental monitoring program. All these are so important, and it's the way that data can be used. You can use the Internet of Things to connect devices and develop standards and to improve their interoperability. So efficiencies with data management and the becoming more proactive, to me, is one of the better benefits of AI. You can streamline and have real-time monitoring of all the data that working in the industry, myself, and then all the spreadsheets we use, all the information as a food safety quality professional, having all this coming in at you. Some of this all can be managed, and the kind of the end results, kind of the interpretation that we would do can all be programmed and done where you're just verifying it. So it's streamlining all those processes put together. The predictability of an accuracy, having all this data and kind of the cues to you. Again, these are to the food safety professional, not removing the role of food safety professional, but the way that data is managed and how to improve the response time to when contamination incidents are occurring or about to occur. So it's like a flag, it's like a monitoring, a radar. You can have enhanced risk management, switching from, and I pretty much spoke about this before, to me, your time to react or becoming proactive around all this data coming in and having these set up so that you will get a flag saying, we're going from green, everything's okay, yellow, there's some indication we're going to have some issues, to red, we're there. But again, it's the proactivity of all this data. And of course, with this comes the reduce of waste in your organization, whether it be to your ingredients, your raw materials, packaging, the rework, and the downtime. So it really all fits together with the use of AI. Next, please. A couple more benefits of AI with automatic cleaning system. And these are some that I've seen that are out there, having sensors and robotics program to ensure cleaning while reducing your water use and chemical use. So it's really zoned in. Real-time monitoring of employees, hand washing, compliance, to ensure alerting management if sanitation protocols are not followed. Actually, there was a vendor, I won't mention names, but at the GFSI conference in Ireland that had a really QM type of monitoring with AI that I saw that I thought was really interesting. So these are out there. Predictive contamination detection, I kind of talked about this before, but using that from your historical data to really telling you watch out, we've got a problem coming. We need to proactively look into this and prevent, the end that we all work in the food industry in food safety about the foodborne illness prevention. And to me, too, with this is competency and AI assisted training programs that can help the sanitation program with advancements and keeping their competency levels very high to the latest and greatest in sanitation principles, which again have to be meeting the SQFI standard and also that of your company's acceptance. So with that, there's the flip side of all the benefits of AI, which I'll go into next, please. And that's the challenges with AI. And I recently spoke at the Food Safety Summit in Chicago specifically about this. And, we're in this day of evolution here to AI. Everybody wants AI, wants to use it. It is very, very beneficial, but it comes, and I do a big but, with risks and with data security and accuracy. It is by any means not to replace the food safety professional's role. It is, to bring more data into your organization and how you use it, but you really have to see how this information integrates with your already established food safety SQF management system. It is so important that it's not, you're not trading one off for the other. It's not that at all. It's using the AI information, these tools, to complement your food safety system. And you need to ensure that these products that are out there comply with the US regulations, or if you're from Canada or from another country, your regulations within the country. The EU has some regulations out there that are really robust around AI. Make sure if you're in the EU that, or any place in the world, that the regulations are, you're meeting those and your company policies. So again, it's not, okay, AI is here, we're switching something off. We're not. We're implementing those, integrating those. There's also ethical concerns with AI and social economic impacts. So AI does can expose a lot of even HR related information about personnel. So you really have to look at the security and how it's being used within your organization, and the economic impacts of that on your personnel. I mean, it doesn't mean that roles should be changed or eliminated. They can do something better. They can be putting their energy and their time into using AI and predicting these foodborne illnesses and prevention. So the personnel resistance to embracing change, and that's with anything, but it's especially with AI. Sometimes it's got right now a bad rap, and it doesn't need to be that. It's not to replace personnel, but it's a tool to bring in to what you already have existing. Next, please. Oh, yeah, so AI considerations for sanitation control. The use of AI, so important. Make sure that you are implementing this in a very robust way through your change control, your change management systems, that you look at how you're communicating this to your stakeholders. So this needs to be looked at both internally to your organization, to your corporation, and to your customers. Something that it's a change, something that you might not think of your customer impact of what they know you're doing, how you're doing it, and those controls around that. It needs to be looked at as part of, and not a separate tool, but your whole risk management program and how it fits together and what it's doing and what it's not doing, and go through those proper implementation steps that you would do in a normal change to your process around sanitation. And again, that's the biggest message I want to have with this, is that it's, it's part of, it's not, well, let's use this and not what we already have in place. It's how it's integrated, and that it has to become part of your internal audits. I mean, it is part of your tools and what you're using in sanitation, and you have to monitor it, just like Plan, Do, Check, Act. You have to make sure you're monitoring what you've changed, and that you're getting the result that you think you're supposed to be getting, that it's part of your whole system, and it's being assessed. It should also be brought up into your management review meetings. How the AI is working. Are you getting the intended results with the sanitation changes? But again, not to have it as a separate AI tool that somebody's using on their own, that might look to be good, but again, the information that is out there and with AI and Microsoft and all that, it's not always verified information. So you really need to be careful. And the new, I always call it the new kid on the block, the ISO 42001, is the new ISO standard on AI. And it is, and if you haven't seen this, you probably should look into it, but it gives you a lot of good practical ways of managing the risk of AI that you should consider within your organization around sanitation, the changes you're being made, but it is again that Plan, Do, Check, Act type of implementation, and it's different than the IT technology and cybersecurity. It's totally different. It's specifically around implementing AI into your food safety your management systems. I'll say food safety management system, which we work with. That pretty much is the content that I wanted to cover. Next is we'll go on to our Q&A session, which we did want to leave a lot of time here open to the audience to ask questions. And Kristie's going to lead us on with this. Again, giving you enough information on these topics, they become interested, that 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 there are considerations out there. But we leave this open to you now to send in your questions, and Kristie's going to monitor this next part of our webinar. Kristie, I turn it over to you.
Thank you both so much. Great information. We appreciate your time and your expertise. We did have some questions come in while you both were presenting. So a couple folks did ask, or can you provide some examples of AI in environmental monitoring? So I wasn't sure if the question was around, which tools, but or if there, so before I hand it over to you to respond, I want to point out, regardless of the tool you use, you please keep in mind what Kathy talked about is it is just one other tool. And as I was sitting here, I came up with an example. Remember back when you were required to develop your HACCP plan, and the first time you ever created your HACCP plan, you Googled, can I have, find me a HACCP plan? Are there HACCP plans? And you may have found industry examples of HACCP plans. And you're like, oh, okay, this is very useful. You didn't just take that, download it, put 3-hole punch and put it in a binder. You took that sample HACCP plan and you used it as a discovery, you used it as a learning tool, and you customized it to your product and your process. So the same thing with AI tools is you're going to type in, here's my, here's what I have. How can I improve this? Or here's my data. How can I, improve my environmental monitoring program? You're going to take that and you're going to look at it and say, oh, that's a good point. Didn't think of that. Oh, that's a nice point. You're not going to take it. You're not going to print it out. You're not going to 3-hole punch it and put it in your binder. You're going to use the AI as a tool. So with that being said, that's essentially, what Kathy said. But I thought I would pass it off to either or both of you, maybe Kathy first, to say, what, around AI, do you have any specific, let's say, tools or for sanitation or for environmental monitoring, or points that you would recommend? Kathy, maybe I'll hand it over to you first.
Sure. Thank you, Kristie. So I won't echo, I'll just echo what Kristie said about AI. And
Okay.
as a certification body, I can't really recommend a specific tool for you. I can tell you that they are out there. I have seen many and it's more around the data management and the predictability of your systems. So there are companies, and what I see too, some of these companies are from well-established persons that have worked in many of the leading brands in the US that understand the challenges of the industry, and they're working now in kind of their different career in AI, and they have come up with tools that are useful. So they are out there, but I specifically can't lead you directly to them, but I can tell you they are out there. If you just use the internet to search for them, but specifically I know, and they've been verified around the data management part of it. Angela, would you like to add to that from what you're seeing?
Yeah, and I think that you're right. I'd agree with you in terms of we wouldn't want to recommend a specific product or anything to be used. I think one more thing to consider, especially since, if we're thinking about sanitation, we're really thinking about what happens often in a manufacturing facility or somewhere in that supply chain. There are so many points in that supply chain that we gather data. When there's data to be gathered, there's a lot that we can do with it. And specific to each operation, we have data. So when we think about looking for, what's out there, what's a solution we can use, you have to always keep in mind that what someone else is doing may not be applicable to your operation. And so plug and play is not necessarily the way you want to go. But you do want to understand the principles being employed and then how you might think about solving that problem in your own setting. One of the things that we can do using AI for sanitation is understanding environmental data. I think someone asked a question about environmental monitoring. So having a data set that is specific to your facility over a long period of time, right? And you need to have gathered the right parameters of information and the right data in order to use any sort of AI system or to do any kind of predictive measures. We have been doing research in this area for some time. The type of research we do is challenging in terms of being able to truly predict, because every day's production run that you might have that required you to clean prior to running and often afterwards, both those sets of data are required for you to be able to take that and then say, now I've gathered 100 points over this much of a period of time. And then I know specific points in my facility that I already have this data for. You can't make up data and then think that that can help you predict, right? So the core to using any kind of artificial intelligence is gathering an adequate amount of data that you can rely on, that you can then say, aha, how can we use this to then make some decisions? The other factor that needs to be considered, because most people, when they think about AI, they think about the common tools that everyone can access, and they have to do with large language models. So things like ChatGPT. These are not the types of systems that are going to actually clean your plant, right? Can you ask ChatGPT to clean your plant? No, none of those systems will actually do that. And if you were to ask it those kinds of questions, you need to be very cognizant of the fact that any of those systems have not been trained to manage a food safety system or to address some of the food safety risks that you have in your plant that are specific to your plant, right? So you want to be aware of that, and you want to make sure that nobody who is in your operation is trying to make decisions based on a lack of information or inadequate information. So it's more a watch out when we say about AI, because AI is a very useful thing, but also you need to watch out for so many things that could go wrong because there's so many tools accessible to so many people. When it comes to sanitation and actually putting things into play in the manufacturing facility, robotics, which uses artificial intelligence, is a far more exciting area for sanitation and in terms of actually practically getting things done. So what does that really mean practically? You need to understand what robotic systems are relevant to the facility. And then there are very few that can really do all the jobs, right? So finding suppliers that can give you solutions that can do some of the tasks that are hardest for you to do, that's a task. Those are helpful things to look at, but also know that, when we say, hey, AI is here, know what the challenges are and know what the risks could be for your facility, so that you can then ask better questions of those suppliers of equipment.
Thank you. Such good information. Thank you for putting that into context. I really do appreciate it. It is a fabulous tool. So we had a couple of questions about zoning. Angela, I thought maybe you could talk a little bit about this. You kind of alluded to it or briefly mentioned it at the beginning of your presentation about zoning. How, as another tool, how is zoning best used in building out your sanitation program?
Right, it's a fantastic question. I think zoning, again, is a key tool that we can use to really understand our facility. So you have zone 1, 2, 3, 4. You might have FDA giving you certain recommendations or requirements. USDA has some documents, and this is for a US audience when I'm giving you those kinds of recommendations, right? However, zoning matters wherever in the world you are, right? Zone 1 is always going to be equipment that touches and comes directly into contact with the equipment. Zone 2 would be adjacent, right? And so what we want to do is understand what zone 4, which is as far away in the facility, it could be an office area or some adjacent area. You want to make sure that whatever is coming into zone 4 does not get into zone 1. So our goal is to ensure that we have gathered enough data, we understand what zone 4 means to us and our product, and then we're making sure that we're monitoring things that tell us things that are in zone 4 are or are not making their way into zone 2. Because once they're in zone 2, you're already having a product that's potentially at risk, right? So we want to understand those zones and to understand each one from the perspective of all the data we're gathering there, So it's really important that we define each of those zones, again, very specific to each facility, very specific to how you're running that facility and how people are moving in and out, people and also equipment is moving in that facility, right? So we need to have very good definitions of those. It's not something that AI can solve for you because only you know your facility, right? So you need to make sure that you understand that, and then you're developing a risk-based plan for what to do when you have a specific number of maybe coliforms appear or salmonella appear in zone 4, right? What are you going to do? So you have to have a plan for what you're going to do and then document that as robustly as you can so that you can take action.
Oh, fabulous. I keep muting myself so that you don't have background noise while I'm sitting here. Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Very clear and informative answer. Let's see. I had a question here I wanted to ask Kathy. Oh, it's Kathy, I was going to throw this one to you. Are SQF auditors looking for AI or risk data management of our sanitation programs, including the master sanitation completion rate? I thought perhaps you can give some thought to that.
Not yet. Let me say that I mean, the standards guide the auditors. So if and when GFSI, the guidance team that actually writes the changes, once when they implement that AI portion, I'm sure it will be coming. Then Kristie and her group at SQF would then write that into the standard and specifically what auditors will look at. But if they see something, I mean, on their own, they're going to ask about it. Yes. But as far as a requirement from the standards, it's up to SQF to then write that into their standard for the auditor to specifically. But if they start seeing AI and how to use that it's being used, I'm sure every auditor, doesn't matter if they're from DNV or from any, will start asking questions about it because, again, of the points that I brought up as far as how it's being managed. So, if you are using AI and the auditor, does see that and it comes up, they will specifically start asking questions. Kristie, I don't know if you wanted to allude to anything on that too with AI from the, from your point. I think that would be probably good to dovetail onto what I said.
Yeah, there was thanks, Kathy. Yeah, there was also another question that said, is SQFI, let me see if I can, working on any AI-driven tools to enhance sanitation programs in the future. I mean, never say never. I will say, our focus is on the standard. We're a standard owner. We're a certification program owner. So those cool tools, I would love to, and I know my team and I would love to work on things like that. But we usually partner with folks like that and wonderful service providers out there. So in the context of the code, you're not going to see, anything around AI again. Just living in that mindset that this is just one other tool and talking about what both Angela and Kathy have said about it, how you use the tool, how you justify the use of a tool, using the analogy of that sample HACCP plan. How did you use that? How did you take that sample HACCP plan or sample guidance? How do you just take that FDA guidance and modify it for your process and your product? So in regards to it just specifically being in the code, again, just, you're probably not going to see it in there because it is just simply one other tool, like a guidance document or, an example. So there was a question. Thank you for all the questions. So I have both the chat and the Q&A pod open, and I'm looking. Where did it go?
Kristie and
Oh,
Kathy, I think
go ahead.
one thing I think to kind of to build on what you've been saying and perhaps a little bit to the questions being asked also, if you were to, just like we see some of the cases right now making the media on how AI being used in homework, right? Students using AI for homework is coming up or for producing a paper, and that can be a matter of plagiarism, right? So it's really the kind of thing where people especially think of people who are in a professorial role in a college, right? They're looking out to say, hey, does this sound like AI? Does it look like AI has been used? Does it sound like the voice of my student? Similarly, if you're having an auditor going into the plant, they're looking to see, does the system work, right? We always want the SQF system to be in place and to work really well. So if the auditor is looking for cues as to something being off, and it happens to be that something in your paperwork looks a little off, you might be alerting them to look deeper into something else that's going on in your facility. So just keep that in mind, because we as food safety professionals want to make sure that everything that's happening in the plant is aligned with our documentation, and that you're always having truthful documentation, right? So those are the things that we need to keep in mind to make sure that we are doing the right things every single day, and that we're not taking a shortcut, right? Because not only is it the wrong thing to do, but your auditor also may pick up on something, and we want to make sure that everything works truthfully. So
Yes, you say things so perfectly. Thank you. I just hand the mic to you, Angela. I appreciate that. As long as your mic's on, Angela. So from someone named Angelica, not to call Angelica out, but Angelica has a question for you. Angela, is there any detailed information available on the 7 steps of sanitation?
yes. You can actually Google it. There's also, I think, a document on our website that you can see more details. If you don't find it, there is a help email. Just send it, and someone will send you back the response, right? But it's something that's been really well written on. You should be able to find a few documents on the 7 steps. It really is about how does one break down the piece of equipment? How do you go through the process systematically of cleaning something? And then make sure that if you do need to sanitize it, which it's a regional regulatory requirement. Sometimes you need to wash after sanitize application. Sometimes you don't, right? If you do have to wash after, that's an 8th step. If not, you have 7 steps, and through that whole process, you should be able to really well address the cleaning steps.
Perfect. Perfect. Lovely. Thank you. There was a question I saw. Do you anticipate Edition 10 to place more emphasis on demonstrating that you, let me move this over, conducted the risk assessments to justify your cleaning and sanitation schedules as well as environmental monitoring? That's such a good question, because yes, in Edition 10, you will see an increased emphasis on risk assessments in general. So that's actually a great question. Thank you for asking that, Mr. or Ms. Anonymous. And so I should point out, I'm going to use that to segue into, you're probably wondering about Edition 10. Is it here? It is not yet here. We are furiously working on it and wrapping it up, as a matter of fact. It's been a labor of love. We've been working on it for just about a year, about 11 months, kicking off the process. And we'll be handing it over to our web team to begin placing it on a website very shortly, within the next few days, as a matter of fact, next few weeks. And so we're anticipating it to be released in August, and with an implementation timeline of April 2026. So be prepared to get yourselves ready. And so I didn't mention, but my role is involved in working with our training centers, and I'll be working with our training centers to update our training materials. I'm also working with our online training provider to update our training materials and provide a conversion course and the like. So you'll see all of those tools, guidance documents, and checklists, this coming out with, August onward. So stay tuned. If you haven't signed up for our newsletters, do that. That's the best way to keep on top of that. Our social media as well. So I thought I would just use that as a segue to let you know about that. All right. Let's see, a couple other questions, and of course I can't find the one that I was looking for. ATP testing, is it acceptable to only ATP test daily in a small manufacturing setting? Allergens aren't always present, but either way, ATP testing is done daily. So talking about risk assessments, I leave that, Kathy, Angela, who wants to tackle that one first? Maybe Angela, you can tackle that one.
So ATP is something that we need to understand what we're getting when we're getting an ATP test. An ATP test looks for adenosine triphosphate, right? That is one molecule that can tell us, yes, there was something living here at one point in time, and it happens to be potential that we might have something. So getting a numerical value of how much ATP could be in the sample. That does not tell you if you have a pathogen or you have any other bacterial species over there that's living, because it doesn't give you any information to tell you that. It says there might be something, and there might have been some food. It could have been a residue from a food product. So the ATP can be used to say, yes, I have cleaned my equipment and there is no residue from ATP that I can pick up. That does not mean that your facility is fully clean, right? So you might have places in which you might have a harborage site, something might be stuck there, and if you didn't get that tested and you didn't collect ATP for that, then you're not going to get that value. So what you're testing and how often you're testing and when you're collecting that sample is all important. And if you never got anything other than ATP, I would say that would be the first indication that you don't understand what your facility needs to get, right? So you need to understand if you potentially have a pathogen, because you need to say, I have cleaned, that I don't have a pathogen. So you need to be able to have enough data to support your program. So if you're only getting ATP, I would say it's inadequate. But also you need to understand what you're testing, when you're testing, and to make sure you get the right kind of swabs for each one of those testing protocols necessary.
And I would say, as I've answered a couple of questions this way, work with your chemical provider, your sanitation provider, or an organization such as Angela's to help you there. If you're unsure, if you want to be sure, that you are doing the right thing. You've done your risk assessment, you've identified what your concerns are, and you've done your research and you've settled on this testing to help you to support your risk assessment. If you're not quite sure, or if you want to make sure you are sure, reach out to an organization such as Angela's, or even your sanitation chemical provider as a spot check. Really, that's what they're there for, and they're there to help. So you know what, I will say we are right at the top of the hour, at least on my clock. So I want to thank our speakers, Kathy Warborn and Angela Anandapa, for your time and your incredible expertise. As Ku put in the chat, this is being recorded, and the slides and the recording will be sent to you to the email you registered with tomorrow, is what it says. And we thank all of you for joining us today. Hope you found this interesting, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.